Welcome to this section on logging and monitoring on AWS. In this section, we will cover AWS services and features that can provide various activity logs and real-time monitoring of important metrics. Administrators find these to be invaluable tools for troubleshooting, auditing, and performance and cost optimization. We begin this section with a discussion of the primary services and features related to logging AWS activity. One of the biggest benefits of AWS is the speed and ease with which virtual infrastructure and services can be configured and deployed. Most organizations have multiple users with permissions to launch, modify, and access some or all of their AWS services. And like in most IT systems, human error is a major cause of outages, so therefore it is critical to have complete and comprehensive visibility and knowledge of system configurations and access. In this video, we're going to describe how to easily obtain and view detailed logs to help you answer who did what, when, and from where. We're also going to show how to get notified of configuration changes and find out when a change was made that might result in a misconfiguration, vulnerability, or an audit failure. Since every interaction with AWS is through their service APIs, AWS provides an easy way to obtain a log of the API activity. This service is known as CloudTrail. No matter how users interact with AWS through the Management Console, SDKs, command line, CloudTrail will capture this activity. Some of the most important entries in the CloudTrail logs are login attempts to the Management Console. There is no charge to use CloudTrail, but you are charged for the cost of storing the logs in S3 buckets. Because of this, CloudTrail is not enabled by default. For each AWS region you are using on AWS, you must enable CloudTrail and provide the name of an S3 bucket to deliver the logs. Good tip if you are managing multiple regions is to create an S3 bucket in your main region and have CloudTrail write the logs for all of your regions to that same bucket. The CloudTrail logs will be stored encrypted using S3's server-side encryption feature. The logs will provide the identity of the user, their source IP, the date and time of the activity, the request parameters, and the response elements from the service API. In the CloudTrail Management Console, you can easily search for particular log entries. Here is a sample CloudTrail log entry. It shows the type of event, in this case a console login, the name of the user, the time, and the IP address that they were using. Note that you can filter CloudTrail logs by various attributes and a time range and do a search. CloudTrail gives you the complete details of your AWS activity. However, one of the problems you may have is that these logs can get quite large and may contain a lot of information to sift through to find what you need. So, AWS has another service known as Config, which records configuration changes made in your account and makes them more accessible. One really valuable feature of Config is that it gives you an inventory of the AWS services being used by the users in your account. To use Config, you must enable the config recorder for a region. It then displays recorded configuration changes for resources on timelines. This is very useful for quickly finding a configuration change that occurred, say, right before an outage. Config also understands dependencies between services and can tell you what resources were impacted by a change. For example, it can list all of the EC2 instances using a particular security group that was just changed. You can also ask Config to send out notifications every time there is a configuration change. Another feature of Config is Config Rules. This allows you to compare configuration changes against a set of rules. You could use rules defined by AWS, which represent general best practices, and you can also create your own rules using Lambda functions. Config Rules allows you to easily see in the console configuration changes that are not compliant with your desired configuration settings. As examples, some of the standard rules are whether CloudTrail is enabled and whether your EBS volumes are encrypted.